What's going on, guys? I am Tim Kelly, joined today by Anthony SanFilippo. This is Phillies Stoplight for March 28th, and the Phillies defeated the Nationals in 10 innings yesterday, 7-3. Kind of a wild game. They struck out 19 times, but they got big hits from Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Boehm, and JT Realmuto, and mostly solid pitching to get an opening day win. They are now off today before another 4:05 start time tomorrow. And that kind of gets us into one of the big topics from the first day of the season. And really, it's a carryover from the postseason last year that shadows were once again a major factor. We talked to a bunch of different guys post game yesterday, Anthony. And, I know some fans view it as an excuse or whatever, but it's reality. It's hard enough to hit major league pitching. When you add in shadows where you literally can't see certain pitches, it makes it almost impossible to hit.
Yeah, and it's really more about glare than shadows. I mean, we keep saying shadows because that's what you see on the field, right? That covers home plate between the pitcher's mound and the batter. But it's really about the glare that comes off of the batter's eye in center field. And in Washington, Nationals Park is really bad. And I was talking to JT Realmuto about it last night, and he was saying he went to catch Wheeler bottom of the first for just warm-ups, and he said he couldn't see the ball. He said he knew it was going to be a problem then. And then, of course, of the first 15 batters in the game, and this is both teams, not just the Phillies, 12 of them struck out. And it's interesting because, look, I'm not trying to make an excuse for the Phillies striking out 19 times. That's bad. You should never strike out 19 times in a game. But it affected the Nationals too, and so much so that both Real Muto and then Zach Wheeler also talked about using it strategically with how they pitch, in a sense that you're basically just going to pound the strike zone. You're not worrying about getting it on the black or throwing down. You're just putting the ball over the plate because guys can't see it. And so it changes the philosophy and the game plan of how you're going. And for a while, until I think it was the sixth inning, when Wheeler had a bunch of pitches, first five innings, he was just cruising and a low pitch count too. And it was like, well, he might go long in this game. So it was something that affected the hitters for sure, on both teams for six innings, and then obviously the offense showed up after that. But it's also something that we never talk about it from the other side, that it's something that pitchers and catchers use to their advantage, and the Phillies did as well yesterday.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. Zach Wheeler not only talked about using it yesterday, but as we talked about last NLDS, he talked about how he kind of used that mindset of make the innings as quick as possible, try to get back out there as quickly as possible while the shadows are still out there and it's working in your favor. He talked about he did that in the NLDS last year in game one, where yes, he had an insane game, pitched really well, but he had like over 30 swings and misses in that game. Zach Wheeler's a really good pitcher, but obviously also hitter. When you take a really good pitcher and hitters can't see, it's kind of the perfect recipe for a starting pitcher. So I did think that was interesting. I thought the money quote was the one that Max Kepler gave you at the about what he's looking forward to Saturday, which is going to be another 4:05 game.
Yeah, he said he was rooting for an overcast game, because he said he thought it was him. Like he was out there, was like, did I take too many days off? Like, is my timing off? He said the pitch that I struck out swinging, he said it was in the dirt and I swung and missed. But then he realized everybody was saying the same thing. So shadows were an impact in the game for both teams. And before we get to the next topic, Tim, speaking of something that's shadowy, can you tell us a little bit about where you are? Because right now this looks like a proof of life video when you talk.
I'm at my Airbnb in the living room, like kneeled down. It's a nice place, but my head almost hits the ceiling in certain parts. And this is the only spot that I could get where it was like a good background. So it sort of looks like I'm at like somewhere in Severance or something that uh I'm making it work. Put it
Yes,
that way.
you're
It's a
making it work. You're putting in the work. I drove home last night from Nationals Park. You actually stayed in Washington for the last two games. So kudos to you for making it work.
Now, one of the other things I thought was interesting yesterday was Bryce Harper really seems to be embracing this kind of being the last run with this team, or at least potentially being the last run with this team. Pre-game, and this is a little wordy, but I think it's all worth reading. He said, at this moment in their career, and this is referring to Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, and Brandon Marsh. He didn't say them directly, but that's kind of who everyone took it as because he said they're not really the daycare anymore. He said at this moment in their career, they have a lot of guys in here that have played baseball for a long time and have been in the game for a long time. I want them to put all the pressure on us and just go out and play their game, just have fun, enjoy the moment, because this might be the last time they're able to do that. Because if they go to a different team or they're with us next year or something else like that, they're going to be the guy one day. So I want them to kind of enjoy that moment of playing ball and having a good time and enjoying it as much as they can. One of the things both you and I have come to the conclusion of covering Bryce Harper a while now is that nothing he says is by accident. So, what did you make of this quote?
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of a situation where it's like this is the last ride, right? For this core. And I feel like this was supplemented by what Alec Boehm said post game when he said, you don't guys don't usually get the opportunity to play with the same group of people for 3 or 4 years in professional sports. And he's right anymore. That doesn't happen. Used to happen all the time back when I was a kid, but in this free agency era, guys change over all the time. In fact, the Phillies only have 13 players left from the World Series team in 22, right? So just to show you how quickly it does turn over. So I kind of get the sense that they know that this is the last go round for this group as it's constituted. And how that changes between now and the start of the 2026 season is anybody's guess. Will Schwarber and Real Muto and Suarez be back? Will they try and trade one of the younger guys like Boehm or Stott or Marsh? Like we don't really know like who's going to be where. But the reality, I think, is that this will not be the same team in 2026. So if they're going to win, if they're going to go out there and accomplish what they set out to accomplish in 2022 when they made it to the World Series, this is going to be their last chance as a core group to do it before there are some major changes that come to the Phillies. I still think they're going to be a competitive team down the line. They've set themselves up in such a way that they will be able to contend in 26, 27, and beyond, but it might not be that same core group. And so I think Harper's basically sitting there saying, hey, listen, one day you're going to be in my shoes and you're going to be the veteran that somebody relies on, whether it's with the Phillies or with another team. And you want to, in order to be the best player you can be, you have to learn how to do it now. And I think that that's kind of what he's suggesting is that go out there, play the game, have fun. Let us worry about being the leaders of the team, and we'll see where that carries us.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because none of those three, Bohm, Marsh, and Stott, are guaranteed to be here next year. I think we all agree on that. But they all have at least one remaining year of arbitration eligibility. So none of them are in their free agent walk year, but it's still. And after the game, I asked Bryce Harper about what it was like to see Alec Boehm come through in that 10th inning after an offseason of trade rumors. And he gave a good answer on that. But first, I mean, a lot of times you'll hear players say, oh, I don't pay attention to rumors, or who knows if the media just made that up, something to that effect. He said he kind of went out of his way to say no, they were definitely like legitimate, and there was a possibility he wouldn't be here, but he's back and we love him, and something to that extent. You can read the story on Pattison with the full quote, but I thought that was interesting as well. It was kind of like in some senses it's a, without him saying this, I remember the summer. This is a weird example, but I remember the summer before my senior year of high school, my dad basically saying to me, like, enjoy it now because the responsibilities, one way or another, are coming. This is pretty much it. And in a weird way, I felt like that was what Harper's message was to that trio.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like, you guys have been along for the ride so far, and it's been fun. You've been the young, exuberant kids, right? Um, the one thing I didn't notice, Tim, was there a shenanigans post game after the game yesterday on the field with the
Yeah, I'm not
dumping of the
sure.
water and the gum and everything else? I didn't see it yesterday, and I didn't remember to look for it, but I didn't see it, and I'm wondering if in fact it took place, or is that something where they've kind of outgrown that a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see where that is. But yeah, you're right. They are at that stage where it's no longer you're just the young guys. You're veterans now. All three of them are veteran major league players, and they have to start producing like veteran major league players.
Now, two guys that are free agents after the season, three guys, Ranger Suarez, Kyle Schwarber, and JT Realmuto. And Bryce Harper said after the game, again, not speaking directly about them, but it was clear kind of who he was referring to. He said, a chance to do it possibly with guys who might not be here next year. It's a real possibility. Obviously, I want guys back and to keep going along with this group, but it's a real possibility that won't happen. So this is a storyline to kind of follow throughout the course of the season because, again, nothing Bryce Harper says is by accident. That's why I've written so much about when him and Scott Boras have talked about potentially wanting a contract extension and things of that nature, because Bryce Harper at times can be guarded with what he says. So when he says stuff like this is somebody that's very well media trained. It's never by accident. So all that I thought was interesting. The final thing I want to get to today are just some general thoughts on the bullpen. You had 3 out of 4 guys. Orion Kerkering had some bad luck early in his inning, pitched really well. Jose Alvarado looked amazing, and then Matt Strom finished out the game. I thought they looked excellent. Jordan Romano, and for the record, he prefers Romano. It sounds like they say Romano in Canada, they say Romano in the United States. He's not particularly offended by either, but he says his parents, and he's Canadian, was born in Canada at least, prefer Romano. So that's kind of what he is going with. But wasn't a great first outing for him with the Phillies.
No, it wasn't, and it's a shame because I think that he was a little bit juiced up at the beginning, and he the first batter he walks, the second batter he hits, so he had control issues, but then he settled down with the next 2 hitters. He got the next 2 outs, right? And it looked like, and he got 2 strikes on Garcia, and it kind of looked like he was going to get out of the inning, and then he put that slider over the plate that, yeah, probably wasn't a great pitch. There's some debate over whether or not that ball could have been caught in center field if Marsh would have taken the right route, or if Johan Rojas was put in as a defensive replacement out there. But still, he put himself in that position because he puts 2 guys on base, and then they do pull off a double steal on him too because he's not holding them well. So that's really on him. I chalk it up to him to just being first game with a new team jitters. If it's something that continues to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks, then I think we can kind of look at it and say, "Uh-oh, was this the wrong guy to bring in here?" But the funny thing is we were talking about it at the game yesterday, that if they didn't sign Romano, the other name that they were talking about was Kyle Finnegan, who then came in the next inning for the Nationals and loaded the bases. The Phillies got out of it. I mean, yeah, he got out of it right before the Phillies scored anything, but there was a situation where he was getting a little wild as well. So bullpens are volatile sometimes, but you're right. The other 3 guys all had strong outings. You can't blame Kerkering for the 2 hits. They were both bloop singles that potentially could have been caught if played properly defensively. And then he got out of it without giving up a run. And Alvarado, man, he just picked up right where he left off in spring training. He was putting 101 on the black, 2 strikeouts and 3 batters. I mean, it was a clinical inning. And you turned to me and you said, when this guy's right, he's one of the best relievers in the game. And there's no question about it that when he's right, he is.
Yeah, and he looks right. I would say that the other one of the other potential guys they could have signed is Jose Leclerc, who came in for the A's last night and blew the game before they
Yeah.
could get it to Mason Miller, giving up 2 monster home runs. So when you bet on veteran relievers, and it's one of the reasons the Phillies haven't made a lot of multi-year investments in veteran relievers, there's a chance you just don't know what you're getting year to year. I think Romano was a good risk to take, but it was a risk, and we'll see how it plays out. I wouldn't be overly concerned by one outing. Like you said, I think there were some nerves. He was juiced early on, and he got better as the outing went on. But Kerkering, I was really impressed, and that's kind of one of those things that gets lost in the game. He had the play where Bryson Stott maybe could have caught it, but then kicks it inadvertently through Brandon Marsh's legs, and then they put a ball perfectly between the third baseman, left fielder, and shortstop. Like a lot of bad luck, and he managed to get out of that inning unscathed. So I thought that was really impressive. And for the most part, I think this has a chance to be a pretty good bullpen.
Yeah, at least the back end for sure. I mean, those 4 guys I think will be solid for the Phillies this year. I do still worry a little bit about the middle relief. I mean, Jose Ruiz is just okay in my mind. But the rest of that bullpen leaves a little bit to be desired in my mind. We'll see with Joe Ross. He only had a short run in that role last year for Milwaukee that was successful, but otherwise he's been a starter or a long man. So I don't know what it's going to look like with him in middle relief. Tanner Banks, those guys, we'll see. But the reality of it is I think that the four guys at the back end of the bullpen are still pretty darn good.
Yeah, I do as well. Obviously, a ton. I used to hate this off day after opening day, but I kind of like it now. It gives you a chance to regroup, and it really makes you appreciate the magnitude of how big that first game is. So, a ton of storylines already out of that first game, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more over the weekend in DC. And then the Phillies come home to Citizens Bank Park to play the Rockies and the Dodgers. We will be here to cover it all, and also on Pattison.com. Always a ton of Phillies content there. You can check us out there. We will talk to you guys next time.